My name's John Page. I'm a trade unionist. I live in Hackney, East London. I'm making this short video as part of the campaign by Hackney Unites and other community groups to preserve the name CLR James Library for our local library in Dalston. If you'd like to know more about the campaign, please visit www.hackneyunites.org.uk. CLR James was a towering figure of the 20th century. He was born in 1901 in the Caribbean, in Trinidad, and he came to England in the early 30s. He was a cricket correspondent for the Guardian newspaper. He was a member of a range of Marxist organisations. He was a Trotskyite. He later moved beyond Trotskyism and rejected some of the tenets of that movement. But throughout his life, he was somebody who championed the oppressed and fought for social justice. He's famous for writing a number of books, a play, a novel, a history of the San Domingo Revolution in Haiti, etc. But I want to concentrate on just one small element of his contribution, which was he was the person who initiated the concepts that led to the idea of black self-organisation in trade unions, and that obviously led to other organisations such as women, people with disabilities, people with diverse sexuality, and so on. In 1948, James was a member of a small Trotskyist organisation in the United States of America. He was concerned that their ideological position in relation to the black African American struggle for democratic rights was wrong. Effectively, their position, it was the received wisdom at the time, was that participation in such movements was a diversion from the main struggle, which was to achieve economic justice. James rejected that. He wrote a motion to their annual conference and he presented his arguments. And he relied heavily on the fact that the struggle for social justice could enrich the struggles for economic justice. Today we take this as commonplace, and it would be very odd for somebody to argue otherwise. But in 1948, James was standing alone against the whole movement to argue his point, and he argued his point successfully. And he took as an example the role of the African American community in the factories in Detroit, in the car plants in particular, and how their role there not only put them in a position where they developed economic power, but it also put them in a position to lead struggles for social justice. I'm going to read a brief extract from the paper that he put to that conference. And it's interesting because it deals not just with the role of the urban working class, but it also deals with the issues of the way that Henry Ford exploited racial divisions to further his interest, and how the black middle class were a wavering force which could be co-opted by Henry Ford or could be led by the industrial workers. So, the African Americans in the Ford plant were incorporated by Ford. First of all, he wanted them for the hard, rough work. I am also informed by the comrades from Detroit he was very anxious to play a paternalistic role with the African American petty bourgeois. He wanted to show them he was not that person that these people said he was. Look, he was giving African American opportunities in his plant. He was able thus to create divisions between whites and African Americans that allowed him to pursue his anti-union reactionary way. What has changed within the last few years? The mass of the African Americans in the River Rouge plant, I am told, are one of the most powerful sections of the Detroit proletariat. They are leaders in the proletarian struggle, not the stooges Ford intended them to be. Not only that, they act as leaders not only in the labour movement as a whole, but in the African American community. It is what they say that is decisive there, which is very sad for Henry Ford. And the African American petty bourgeois have followed the proletariat. They are now going along with the labour movement. They have left Henry Ford too. It is said that he has recognised it at last, and that he is not going to employ any more African Americans. He thinks he will do better with women, but they will disappoint him too. I'm particularly conscious of that reference to women. This is in 1948. To my knowledge, the first Women's Liberation Conference took place in the UK in 1972. At that time, in 1948, there was no women's liberation movement to talk of. And yet James, in a single sentence, dismisses the idea that Henry Ford can solve his problems by bringing in another section of the working class who are unorganised at that time. James says the women will disappoint him too. And of course, as we all know, they certainly have done over the years. I will just read a further extract. And this is talking about the intensity of hatred that was held by African Americans for the American way of life at that time. A time, of course, of the Jim Crow laws, segregation, and so on. Let us not forget that in the African American people, there sleep and are now awakening passions of a violence exceeding perhaps as far as these things can be compared, anything among the tremendous forces that capitalism has created. Anyone who knows them, who knows their history, is able to talk to them intimately, watches them at their own theatres, watches them at their dances, watches them in their churches, reads their press with a discerning eye, must recognise that although their social force may not be able to compare with the social force of a corresponding number of organised workers, the hatred of existing society and the readiness to destroy it when the opportunity should present itself rests among them to a degree that greater than in any other section of the population in the United States. And this is in 1948. This is at a time when Malcolm X was still Malcolm Little. He was in prison at the time. Martin Luther King had not become a pastor at this time. People like Angela Davis, Huey P. Newton were still preschool age. And yet the coming storm that is the African American Civil Rights Movement and the African American Black Power Movement is something that CLR James can sense from his interaction with the community, the African American community around him. And he prepares the international labour movement to actually be an asset to those struggles for social justice, rather than being a brake, which they would have been without CLR James's intervention. And for that one contribution alone, I believe he is worth remembering and worth honouring and worth being part of the legacy of the movement for social justice that he played so great a role in. And I believe we should keep the name CLR James Library. And there are probably 1,000 other good reasons why the name should be kept, but I can't think of one good reason why the name should be removed.